The greatest danger. What is the greatest danger? Every person on earth is certainly at risk of this danger. One thing's for sure. Our body wears out eventually. And we die. That may be the greatest danger for some. But there is a far greater danger than this. It's arriving in hell. Right after taking our last breath. Yes, there are varying beliefs about hell. Some believe it doesn't exist. Others aren't sure. But there are those who do believe in the existence of hell. However, there are a rare few who've been taken there in spirit and brought back to tell the story. Following are testimonies from a selection of these few. These individuals don't know each other in any way. Yet what is astonishing is the description they give of hell is identical. Each of them speaks of raging fires, darkness, untold numbers of people screaming, in torment and suffering. Each them also speak of being atheist. But after their experience, were completely transformed to follow God through our Lord Jesus Christ. Our Lord, being the one who warned of hell more than anyone who has ever lived, and of being cast there for all eternity, saying, "Fear ye not them that kill the body, and are not able to kill the soul, but rather, fear him that can destroy both soul and body in hell."
It was February of 1975. At that time I was an alcoholic out of control. I was also using recreation drugs, but primarily alcohol was my drug of choice. And I totally was out of control. And I had a lot of friends in the entertainment business, and Whitaker happened to be one of them. Ringo Starr and a bunch of people, and so they were having a TV special on the West Coast. And so Hoyt had called me and asked me if I would like to go or come out. And I told him, yeah, I'd love to, because I knew there was going to be a lot of booze, I knew there was going to be partying, and while they were doing their special, I was doing my thing. And so after about 3 or 4 days out there, I became ill, and by ill I mean I had a severe pain in my abdomen. I flew into Oklahoma City and called a senator friend of mine and told him I had to have a car because I was ill, I was sick. So they sent a car and they took me home, and I checked into the hospital at Wadley Hospital in Texarkana in February of 1975. I checked in with electrolytes, which means my potassium, my chlorides, and various chemicals were so far out of balance that they had to give me IVs to build me up. Now, at that time in my life, I was an atheist. I was a hardcore atheist and was living for myself. Atheists are self-centered, and they live for themselves. And this is where I found myself in 1975 in the hospital, and they took 3 days and then they operated me. And when they operated me, I found myself in intensive care. I woke up on a respirator, which means they were breathing for me. I couldn't speak, but I had been laying there in a coma, and I had heard these people talk about how sick I was and how I was going to die and how I wouldn't get out of the hospital. And at that time my hair was very, very long, because I just wore my hair long. And I heard one guy say, his hair is long, and another guy said, not nearly as long as it's going to be before he gets out of here. And a third voice said, he's not going to get out of here, he's going to die. And after 3 days I could breathe on my own. And I remember my doctor, my surgeon, a guy by the name of Donald Duncan, he told me, he says, Don, if you have anything to get right, if you have anything to get signed, you get it done, because we're not sure. We're not sure how long you have. So I knew, see, I had a condition that was called acute hemorrhagic necrotic pancreatitis. You don't live with this disease. Now, you can live with pancreatitis. You can even live with acute pancreatitis. But you do not live with acute hemorrhagic necrotic pancreatitis. Duncan had told my 2 sons that I would be dead before morning. They didn't expect me to survive. And, I'm laying there. Now, I'm a professed atheist. And when I say a professed atheist, I didn't believe in God. I believed in the power of the universe because I had seen it. You know, I'd seen life and death. As a physician, I dealt with life and death. I believed in something, but don't talk to me about God, and surely don't talk to me about a resurrection or a virgin birth or this type of thing, because I am in research science. PhDs in research science, the majority of them do not believe in God. They do not believe in a supreme being. They believe, and they're beginning now to believe that there is order in the universe, because as we get farther and farther along, we see the order. But I was an atheist. Now see, it's very easy to be an atheist when you're successful. You have worked your way from Oklahoma welfare to being one of the most powerful men in your part of the country, one of the most powerful men in the state of Oklahoma in relationship to political. It's very easy to be an atheist when you have done all of that. Man can sit back and say, I don't need God. What is God? But it's very difficult to be an atheist when you're laying on your deathbed, because you begin to think, what if these people are right? See, there'd been one man by the name of Ron Short that has stood between me and the gates of hell. One man that had witnessed to me about the love of Jesus for 5 years before I became ill. One man. And, you know, I would debate him, and I liked him because he did what he said he was going to do. I mean, he was the only one that I saw that professed to be Christian, that lived what he said he was going to do. And so I really respected him. I didn't believe what he said, but I respected him. But when I'm laying on my deathbed and knowing that I'm going to die, guess who I thought about? I thought about, what if Ron is right? What if there is a heaven and a hell? And so the most immediately, the most pressing thought in my mind is, how do I get saved? What is saved? What is saved? How do I get saved? And so I sent them for Ron Short. I wanted him to come down because I wanted him to do what he had to do. I had no idea. How can a man hanging on a tree in Israel 2,000 years ago, what is that to me? But I knew that he had something that I had to have. And that night, see, I had him go for Ron, but Ron wasn't home. Ron was in Alabama. And so I had him go and send for Ron. And that night was the longest night that I've ever had in my entire life, before or since. And that night is, as I would be laying there in bed, as I'm laying there in bed, I would begin to fade away. I would begin to fade away, and as I would fade away, I would begin to go down. Now, it was like darkness. It was so dark. It was like the very darkness just penetrated into your very, very being. And as I left, and I can tell you I left my body, because I remember when I came back into my body. You know, I don't know where I was out of my body. Now, there are people that talk about a light. There are people that talk about floating above. There are people that talk about a feeling of warmth and love. I didn't feel any of that. I felt none of that. I felt untold terror. Untold terror. Because I knew that if I ever went all the way, if I slipped all the way, I would never get back. Now, in my beings of beings, I knew that. And so I fought all night long. They told me later on, I not only pulled the mattress cover off of the mattress, I pulled the mattress up on me because I had to stay. I had to wait. I had to wait till Ron got there. Whatever he had to do, I had to wait. But I would, again, and then I would leave, and I would be going down like a deep, deep, dark terror. Now, my skin began to get cold. Now, it's not like cold when you walk out into the air. It's like bone bone-chilling cold in my lower extremities, and you can feel the coldness begin to come up the legs. And again, I would begin to leave. Now, and I would be in that darkness, and I'd be in that void. And I remember one time entering back in my body, because when I entered my body, it was like, just like that. I felt my body thud, my physical body thud when I entered back in. Now, believe me, that is the most horrifying, terrifying experience that I've ever encountered. And I fought all night long, and the next morning, somewhere 9:30, 10 o'clock, in came Ron. And Ron came in and he says, "Dr. Whitaker, what do they say is your chances?" I said, "Ron, they tell me I have none." He says, "Now's the time." And I said, "You're right." I mean, I'd cursed him, I'd spit at him, but now was the time, because I had to have whatever he had, because I had a short period of time on earth, and I didn't have any idea when I might make that trip and go all the way. Ron told me that Jesus had died for my sins. He had died for the sins of the world. I didn't quite understand that, but I knew, he showed me in the Word of God where it said that. Now, you have to understand, I'm a man of books. I've spent a big part of my life, 25, 26 years of my life, in books, in, all types of scientific books. Chemistry, like I said, degree in chemistry, advanced degrees, all the way out to the medicine doctor to practice medicine, all of these degrees. So he told me, and I believed him, because it's in this book, and it was a new book unto me, and it was called the Bible. And I can tell you one thing, there was a peace that came over me like I had never known. I'd search for that peace. I'd search for it in the bottles, alcohol. I'd search for it in needles. I'd search for it in drugs. I'd search for it with women. I'd search for it all types of places. But there was no peace in my life. But once I accept Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior, I was no longer afraid. I still believed I was going to die, because I knew the condition I had is that you do not survive it. I knew that. I'm a physician. I knew what I had. You did not survive. And he shows me in the Word of God. It says, "These signs shall follow those that believe. They shall lay hands on the sick, and they shall recover." I walk around on planet Earth this day, taking no insulin, taking no enzymes, eating whatsoever that I might, and God produces in my body every day the correct material for me to function without having to take medication. When you see blind eyes open, you see the cripples walk, you see the leopards cleanse, and you see them with your own eyes. You see that. Then it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that, the Bible is true. All of these people that in the New Age movement that believe that everybody's going to heaven, that you can worship anything, you worship a flea, you can squeeze a tree, you can worship a crystal, you can worship a star. I got news for them. They're not going unless they accept Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior, because the Word says the only way to the Father is through the Son.
As I'm sleeping, all of a sudden I'm in hell. Now when I say hell, I mean this cave. The cave is humongous. I can't even describe over to my left, there's like a 2-mile wide crater with orange, like yellowish, reddish flames coming up, and the screams are millions at the same time. And the thought that hit my head was like, that's where Hitler's at. That's where the major people who are leading a lot of people to death are, or that have, or whatever, or where they will be going. And where I was up on this ledge, and there was two cave entrances there, you know what I'm saying? I didn't go into them, but I could see them. And I had a demon. There was demons all over, and there was people just screaming all over. and a demon would grab my right arm and pull and would rip my arm off, where my whole arm would come off, and I'd see the skin hanging and the veins and the blood. And you know, the first 2-3 times you see that, you're still used to thinking how we do on earth, and on earth we're like, oh no, what panic. But there it's different, so you're shocked. But he'd pull it off, and a couple seconds later it would be back on again, and he would do the same thing all over again, and he'd be holding my arm, looking at me, laughing, because he just wants to see the fear, the fright on my face. So in front of me stood this, only way I can describe it is a monster, and I'm talking like 4 foot wide, huge shoulders, like Sully off of Monsters Inc., if you ever seen that. And that was a cool movie and all, but this guy was like evil, huge, big like that, huge, like knives, you know, huge claws, huge. And these things, he would just go like this, wham, and come off from this side, and when he'd hit me, he'd just rip my stomach to shreds, and my whole insides would fall on the ground of the cave. And I'd look down, and you know, once again, you're shocked. How's this happening? You know, if it happens here, we're dead. But there, by the time he'd pull his hand back again, I was healed. And he would do it all over again, and he'd laugh at me. So the whole thing there, they wanted to laugh. They wanted to see your fear. They wanted to torture you. And they were content to do this forever. You absolutely knew that in your heart as you're there. But I remember cursing at him, saying, do you really think I give a F what you're doing? Think about it. On this earth, I'd run crazy from this guy. But there, he didn't even affect me. Because I couldn't feel my stomach being tore open. I couldn't feel my arm being ripped off. And even with the smells, and even with the screams, the panic, the chaos, constantly. The chaos for me was the separation from God. Knowing that I can pray all I want. I can't get my prayers up to Him. It's over. You know. It's like grabbing a rubber ball trying to throw it through the ceiling. It's not going to happen. You know, and I realized instantly that as long as you're living, as long as you're breathing and walking on this earth, I don't care if you're atheist, I don't care what you are, New Age and this and that, wake up, because as long as you're breathing, you have a shot to pray to Jesus, to drop to your knees, to ask God to come into your life, to save your life, and to turn your life over to God. And you can do that as long as you're breathing. Once you breathe your last breath, the dishes are done. Whatever you've accumulated to that point will be what happens. And a lot of people say, well, my God he's a loving God, and there is no hell, and He wouldn't put you in hell, and He wouldn't do this and that. Let me tell you something. That's all nice and everything, and you can keep that where you keep it. But hell is real. And you know who put yourself in hell? You. Because you're shown how you lived. You see everything you've ever done. And why, as you know, as you see, you judge yourself. Well, I wasn't this good. I did this. I did that. He has a law for us to follow. And if you don't follow it, you're going to be in hell. In hell, my heart wants to just explode just thinking of that place. I wish I had 1,000 years to live here, to do good every day I could, just to try to assure myself that I don't go there. You know what I'm saying? I can't even think about going back there. I tried my best today to give glory to God because I'm so scared of that place. But I'm very scared for the people who don't believe in it, because it is so frightening. I'm sure that other people who have had these experiences felt different things in hell. Myself, all I felt was the separation from God. Not one other thing bothered me. As far, you know what I'm saying? Like nothing else could ever overtake that pain. And I couldn't believe that I was stuck here for eternity to be tortured. And to always know that I had everything. I had my wife, I had my kids, I had all the opportunities in the world, and I didn't make any of them work. I squandered everything. And it had brought me to this point for eternity. Now with all this going on, I'm praying to myself and I'm saying, Lord God, please look on my actions and look on, you know, how my heart is, you know what I mean? Like, any actions that I've done good, please, Father, you know, have mercy on me. Like, I didn't do what I was supposed to do. I've always loved you, but my actions didn't always show that. Many times I went against what you wanted. And I was begging and begging, and all of a sudden this light hit this cave where every divot was just sticking out, and you could see everything in this cave now was lit up. You knew instantly, your soul knew, this is Jesus. Everything was stopped immediately. All the screams stopped. These demons and monsters that were pulling on me and hurting me were in these caverns. I could see them blinking, but they couldn't be in Jesus' sight. He shut it down. Now I went to look up and I thought, I don't want to offend them. So I just looked down and I said, Lord God, I'm not worthy of you or anything. Please help me, Jesus. This and that. Next thing I know, I look up and here's Christ. Just right here. I'm on my knees. He's a couple feet up looking at me with this beautiful smile, with the biggest smile, the most. He's so beautiful. He had a white robe on with a brown sash. I mean, he was unbelievably beautiful. He's darker than a lot of the pictures that I've seen, but what an amazing sight, you know, really, truly. Unbelievable, you know. And I've been searching for a picture that comes close to showing, hey, this is what he looked like, you know. But I haven't found one just like it yet. Now, as he looks at me, I'm thinking to myself, this is amazing, you know, this whole story. I know he crucified, he died for our sins and all that, but to see him, to know that you're sitting in front of the Son of God, that he's real, that he's taking time out to come to me, he's helping me in hell, is unbelievable. And I can't understand it to this day. I still can't wrap my head around any of this, you know. I don't understand why I was saved or any of this, but he looked at me with so much beauty, like I was the best thing in the world, and I thought to myself, on earth, I'm ready to kill myself. And this guy's looking at me like I'm the best thing he's ever seen. And I couldn't, you know, right then you imagine what is happening here. You know, right then you understand the amount of mercy that he has, the amount of love that he has for us. It's unfathomable. We can never understand it, begin to understand it, because we don't have love. We don't have the capacity like that. It's unbelievable how much he loves us. And I said, I'm sorry and I love you, and he grabbed me with his right arm, pulled me up, and we just ascended through this cave and into bliss, you know, into a blue sky of bliss. And he said to me, and I quote, as we talked and conversed, we talked telepathically. There was no mouth movement at all or anything like that. He said, and this is quote, I am going to take away your sins. You have suffered long enough. And with that, I was shocked, because my addictions are going, you know, they're the reason I'm dying here. You know what I mean? This is the reason I was going to kill myself, because I can't live a life without addiction. So now he says, I'm going to take your addictions. You have suffered long enough. And I'm like, wow, you know, this is amazing. And at another point I said to him, you know, just let me bring some of this back, please, Lord. You know, let me bring some of this situation somehow in a bottle. Let me jar it. Let me do something. But let me bring it back and show people and say, hey, look, see this? Let them look at it and feel what I'm feeling. And there wouldn't be any questions of what's right and wrong. And it would solve a lot of the things on this earth. Everybody would understand you are the way. But, and this was funny, you know, he always was smiling anyway, but he just said to me, that's not the way this works. And I thought that was funny coming from Jesus, you know. Maybe it's not, I don't know. That's how I took it, though. And that's not the way this works. So, you know what? We have to go off of faith and hope that people see, you know what I'm saying? But that's why I'm doing this, trying to tell my story and get it out to people, because I don't want to show up in front of him again and say, hey, I didn't do nothing with what you did for me, man, you know? And now I feel the time is right for me to start moving with the message, and that's why I'm doing this. But he took my addictions. Now, when I woke up that night in bed, whatever, 3 o'clock in the morning, something like that, I woke my wife up and said to her, it's over. She said, what's over? I said, Jesus took my addictions. And she said, well, hallelujah.
In 1972, my life was broken. I was a drug addict. I was a criminal. My family was broken. My wife had filed for divorce a couple of times. My children were afraid of me. I really couldn't hold a job. My mental state was terrible. And it was in that frame of life that I took my 6-year-old son one night and went down to a little market, going inside to purchase some things. And on the way in to that market, I met a gentleman coming out the door, and an argument erupted. And before I knew it, I had just hit him, knocked him down, and he fell into a stack of bottles. The bottles bursted, and immediately he leaped up with a broken bottle and began to stab at me. I lifted my left arm to try to stop the blow, and the bottle actually severed the biceps muscle, the major arteries in my arm, and I was bleeding to death in just a matter of seconds. But full of anger and hatred and rage, I kept fighting and kept bleeding. My little son was screaming. He was hysterical. But the man that ran the store came over and said, if you don't get to a hospital, you'll bleed to death in just a few minutes. So he actually took me in my own automobile to the hospital, and when we entered the emergency room, I was barely conscious. And as the medical attendants began to work on me, I could hear their voices, and I could hear them saying, we can't help him. He'll have to be transported to another hospital. Probably will lose the arm. And as they loaded me into an ambulance, my wife had arrived by that time and got in the ambulance with me. But as they pulled out of the parking lot of that hospital, a young paramedic looked down into my face, and I could barely see him. I was so weak. But he said, sir, you need Jesus Christ. And I didn't know Jesus. I didn't know what he was talking about. So my reaction to that was to begin cursing. And again, he stated to me, you need Jesus. And as he was talking to me, it appeared like the ambulance literally exploded in flames. I thought it had actually blown up. It filled with smoke, and immediately I was moving through that smoke as if through a tunnel. And after some period of time coming out of the smoke and out of the darkness, I began to hear the voices of a multitude of people screaming and groaning and crying. But as I looked down, the sensation was looking down upon a volcanic opening and seeing fire and smoke and people inside of this burning place screaming and crying. They were burning, but they weren't burning up. They weren't being consumed. And then the sensation of moving downward, but into the most terrible part of it, I began to recognize many of the people that I was seeing in these flames, as if a close-up lens on a camera was bringing their faces close to me. I could see their features and see the agony and the pain and the frustration. And a number of them began to call my name and said, Ronnie, don't come to this place. There's no way out. There's no escape. If you come here, there's no way out. And I looked into the faces of one that had died in a robbery attempt, who had been shot to death and bled to death on the sidewalk. And I looked in the face of two others that had died drunk in an automobile accident. And I looked into the face of others that had died of drug overdoses, that we had partied together, and the agony and the pain. But I believe the most painful part of it was the loneliness. And the depression was so heavy that there was no hope. There was no escape. There was no way out of this place. And the smell was like sulfur, like an electric welder. And the stench was terrible. And as I looked at this, I had seen people killed. I had been involved in fights where people were killed. I've done time in prison for manslaughter myself. I grew up basically in a reform school and in a jail cell. I was beat on mercifully as a child by a father that had temper problems and alcohol problems. I was a runaway at 12 years old, and I felt like there was nothing in this world that could frighten me. My life was wrecked, my marriage was wrecked, my health was wrecked, but now I'm seeing something that literally scares me to death because I don't understand it. And as I'm looking into this pit, this place of fire and screams and torment, I just fade out into blackness. And when I open my eyes, I'm in a hospital room in Knoxville, Tennessee. My wife is sitting by. There had been multiple stitches put in my body. My arm was spared. There was almost 100 stitches. And I looked in the face of my wife, and I wasn't concerned about where I was or anything around me. All I could visualize was what I had just seen. And a couple of weeks later, on a Sunday morning, a matter of fact, the date was November the 2nd, 1972, just before 12 o'clock a.m., a minister stood to read from the Bible. I was sitting in the back of the building. I didn't know anything out of the Bible. I did not know how to act in church. But the minister stood to read from the Bible, and he read from the Gospel of John. And he began to read these words that said, "Behold the Lamb of God that takes away the sin of the world." When he said the Lamb, he had my attention. It wouldn't have meant anything to me, any other passage. But when he mentioned the Lamb, he had this hard-hearted sinner's attention. Because when I was 9 years old, a very poor child in the mountains of eastern Tennessee, with a father that only knew anger and abuse and alcohol, a neighbor had given me a baby lamb. And I had to walk 2 miles to catch the school bus. And coming through her yard, she stopped me one day and said, "Son, I have a gift for you." And she showed me this baby lamb. And I took that lamb home with me. It was my friend, the only friend I felt like I had. And it was such a friend. In days and weeks to come, it followed me, and it would meet me when I got off the school bus and came walking through the woods and the fields. One evening as I came in, the lamb was missing. And I heard my father cursing and screaming, and I looked up to the side of the house, and there he was working on an old model car, changing a flat tire by hand the old way. And I tried to walk around because I didn't want to be cursed, and I tried to bypass him. And when I got on the other side of the car, I looked down, and there was my lamb with blood all over the white wool and a tar tool sticking in its body. The lamb had come around just wanting to be curious. And in a drunken fit of anger, my father had plunged the tire iron through that lamb's body. And when I saw my lamb, my friend, dead, I began to scream as a 9-year-old child. I run into the woods screaming, "He's killed my lamb. He's killed the lamb." And at 9 years old, hatred and violence took my life, possessed my life. And from that point, I was never, ever the same. By 12 years old, I was a runaway. I was in the juvenile system, arrested time after time after time. There was no respect for authority. I hated anyone that represented authority over me. And by the time I was 15 years old, I had been in jail for car theft, for stealing, and at 15 years old, I was sentenced for manslaughter, involved in a car accident that had taken life and crippled others for life. Wondering at that time if life ever would hold anything for me. But when that minister mentioned the Lamb, he had my attention. And he said, Jesus Christ is God's Lamb. And he died and he shed his blood that whosoever will could have a new start.
I was a non-Christian, I was an atheist. And my concept of God was that, well, he wasn't there. It was just all fairy tales. It was all mythology. It was obviously for weak people who believed in religion, couldn't handle reality. So for me, it was a transforming point in my life. I was 24 years of age, and I had been traveling for 2 years, from 1980 to 82, surfing, like hitchhiking around the world through Southeast Asia and through Africa. And I'd ended up on a small island called Mauritius. This island had great surf, good diving. I thought I could retire here. I'd sailed there in '81 and seen it and gone back to it from Africa. And the fishermen that I lived with were Creoles. They were laid back, lived off the ocean. And I just surfed with them and dived with them. While I was diving on the island, they taught me to night dive. Now I'd taught people how to dive and instructed them. I was a qualified lifeguard, but I'd never night dived. And these fishermen taught me to night dive. It's quite freaky, you know, going out at night. But we used to dive on the outer reef. Mauritius, it drops off about 13,000 feet. It's basically a submerged mountain. And so we'd dive on the outer reef from 11 at night to about 1 in the morning. And as we dived, we'd look with our diving torches because the crabs and the crayfish would come out. And they're scavengers, so they'd scavenge the reef. And with your torchlight, you could blind them. With your leather gloves, just pick them up. So we would catch as much seafood as we could, sell it to the tourist hotel, which is how the fishermen earned their living. And for me, I wasn't into the money. I was just into seafood. So go home, cook a bunch up, have a good feed, and, you know, crawl into bed about 2 in the morning, and have a bunch of seafood. You know, parrotfish would be asleep. So you get a few fish for dinner and plenty of seafood. And so we were living on these, you know, when you travel for 2 years, you've got to live pretty cheaply. And so we were living on about $1 to $2 US a day in small huts on the village, near the village. This particular night I went out diving. It was a bit different because I saw there was a storm at sea, and I thought, oh, there's something, maybe the surf will come up on the reef. So I'd dive for years. So I thought, oh, I talked to my friend Simon. I said, oh, Simon, the surf might come up, I'd be dangerous. He said, oh no, this storm will miss us here. We go to a new place tonight. You see best diving in Mauritius. Now, like a good fisherman, he threw out his bait, reeled me in, and so at 11 that night we got all our diving gear in the fishing boat and rowed off out through the lagoon, crossed the outer reef, and then rowed and poled our way down from Tamarin Bay, where I was living, to a place called Rivière Noire, Black River. As we slipped in, it was quite dark because the clouds were coming in, so there was no real moonlight, and it was a little bit of a chop on the water. But as I slipped into the water, my 2 friends had already gone in. As I slipped in, something smashed into my arm and stung me. Oh, I wondered what on earth it was. It felt like an electrical shock. Now, the other two divers had swum off to my left, going up onto the reef, and I'd just been hit by something. I couldn't see what it was. It was excruciating pain, like electricity had gone into my arm. My first thought, electric eel. I thought, well, I've never seen an electric eel, don't even know, you know what I mean, except in an aquarium. What was that? So I looked around the water and started making out these jellyfish. I thought, well, it can't be them. You know what I mean, jellyfish don't do that. You know, they'll sting you, but nothing like that. But these jellyfish are a bit different. They were bell-shaped or torpedo-shaped at the top, then box-shaped, finger-like tentacles. I thought, well, is that a jellyfish? Yeah, it must be. So I reached out and grabbed it with my gloves, and sure enough, it was a jelly. As I swam through, I had no idea that I'd just reached out with my leather gloves and grabbed potentially some books say the deadliest, some say the second deadliest creature known to man, a box jellyfish, obviously, because it's box-shaped. But I'd never read anything on it. I'd never heard about it. And so here, I just had a box jellyfish go through my hand. Now, this particular species in Australia is well known and has killed over 70 people. In New Zealand, no one's really even heard of them, because it's colder water, we're further south. So these particular jellyfish are more in the tropical regions. And it has killed over 70 people. It's so deadly that some scientists are now saying the venom is more deadly than cobra, taipan and black mamba. But as this jellyfish went through my hand, I thought, oh, I wonder what that is. Kept swimming. Then as I kept looking for crays, something else smashed in my arm. This time I saw the tentacles of this jellyfish going past me. I realised, oh man, I must have been hit the first time by one. I began to swim over towards the reef to talk to my friends about them, and another one hit me. And I thought, gosh, there's so many. There's heaps of them in the water. It's like I'd swum into like a whole soup of them. Now, jellyfish are very hard to see at the best of time because they're so transparent, but at night, very, very hard to see. And they were kind of smashing into me. As I asked my friend to surface, he came up, he said, "Christopher, man, what's happening?" I said, "Something hit me, Simon." He said, "You get out on the reef, brother, we have a look." So he had been swimming off to the left, and the jellies are over here to the right, and he hadn't seen them yet. As I put my head back into the water to climb up onto the reef, coming off the outer reef, just the surge of the tide, was a jellyfish being dragged back into my face. As I put my face directly in its path, I had one shot. It was either going to hit my neck, or all I did was just roll in the water, throw my arm in front of my face to protect my throat, and got hit a fourth time. As the fourth one hit me, I pulled the tentacles off and climbed up onto the coral reef. There's a low tide, so it's about 2 foot covering the reef. As I stood there, I looked at my arm with my torch, and what amazed me is my arm had already swollen to double its normal size. Where the tentacles were hit were like burn blisters, and I could feel the toxin pumping through my blood system up into my lymph glands with excruciating pain. I thought, man, what's happening? My right lung started to be constricted as I stood there. Perspiration was pouring off me, and it felt like a branding iron had been put on my arm. As my friend Simon came out of the water, he looked at my arm, and in French he went, "Qu'est-ce que c'est, Jan? What's happening?" I showed him my arm. He went, "Invisible." It's like he knew what it was. And when he said in French, "Invisible," I recognised it to be invisible one. Well, this jellyfish was so invisible, I thought, yeah, okay, invisible. He said, "Pardon, invisible, tac, c'est fini for you." And in French, he's telling me, "C'est fini" means the end. One's enough to kill you. Now, this man had been diving as a child. He was one of the most respected fishermen in the village. The Creoles hated diving at night. It took courage for a man to conquer the fear of darkness and night diving, so they respected him for it. And so he stood there, and I watched him turn his torch onto his face, and he went as white as a sheet. He said, "How come you not know, Ian? This one kill you, brother." I said, "I not know Simon. You think white men know everything, huh? I not know this one." He said, how many hit you, huh? How many tuck?" I went, cut on this four. He went, impossible, allez, vitement, 4 hospital. Now, this man loved me. I knew him. He's a great friend of mine. And, I mean, I knew that when he was telling me to get out of here, we had to move. And I heard him say hospital, 4, which was just up behind the village. Trouble is, I'm standing on the outer reef, miles away from the hospital. It's the middle of the night. He drags me back into the water. The other night diver comes alongside me, and I know that they're protected because they've got full wetsuits. To them, the water's cold, you see. To me, the water's hot. My wetsuit, unfortunately, was a short-sleeve vest with a long john. My forearms were exposed, and my neck. The other divers had full hoods on, booties, I mean, and full steamers, 3mm steamers, so they were completely protected. As they came alongside me, they pulled me up to the side of the boat. The young boy, who's a 14-year-old kid from the village, grabbed my left arm and began to pull me to safety. As they did, my right arm, which was paralysed, trailing in the water, got hit with a fifth one. As I felt that, I thought to myself, what on earth have you done to deserve this kind of punishment or payback? I had a flood of memories of stuff that I'd done wrong in my life. And here I am thinking, well, there's no use thinking about that, whether I deserve it or not. I'm dying. I better keep my head together here. They dragged the fishing boat over the coral reef into the lagoon. As they did, I heard them yell into the young boy to get me to shore. I turned and said, Simon, come with me. Please help me. He said, Ian, no more. Wait, pal. Go, brother, you die. Allez, allez. And I realised I was in trouble, man. I turned and said, Simon, my arm, what can I do? And he spoke to me in French. I didn't understand. He said, Je ne comprends pas. Je ne comprends. I cannot understand you. He put his finger out and motioned with his finger to urinate. I thought he means to pee on your arm. Yep. I thought, that's it. Urinate. Vinegar will do it. Maybe urine will help and be like a bush medicine. Peeling my wetsuit off because it's constricting my breathing, I urinated over my arm, made sure I didn't rub the toxin in anymore, and got changed into my sweats. See, my wetsuit was preventing me from breathing. So as I got changed, I sat down on the boat and thought I must keep as calm as possible. I thought if my heart beats too quickly, the adrenaline rush will pump the toxin, hit my vital organs, I'm gone. So I'm a lifeguard, so I know what's going down. I know I need to get antitoxins. The way these guys are reacting, it's not some little joke. This is life-death stuff. As the young boy's pulling me through the lagoon, I'm sitting there as calm as possible, but I feel the poison move into my kidneys, like someone stuck their fist into my back, as the poison continued to move down the right-hand side of my body. Tinges of it are coming through into my eyes, and I'm having difficulty seeing. It's getting blurry as I'm looking at the beach. I thought, man, this is deadly stuff. As I hit the beach, the young boy motions for me to get out. I take one step forward, and my right leg crumples underneath me as I collapse into the bottom of the boat. As I hit the bottom, I realize the poison has already numbed or paralyzed the right-hand side of my body. The young kid says, put the arm around my neck, so I do that, grab my right arm, which is paralyzed, and hang on to him, and this young kid does an amazing feat, he's only a small kid, carried me up across the sandy beach, which is really hard, up through the houses and the bungalows and the palm trees, up onto the main road. As he got me there, he turned and yelled in French that he wanted to go and help get his brothers, that he's afraid. He said, mon frère, sur la plage. And I realized he was afraid that his brothers would be killed. And so the kid panicked. I said, no, ambulance, gendarme, you know what I mean? Please. And the kid took off. As I sat there on the road, the poison hit me, and I started to feel very weak and tired. And I had no idea that this particular poison often kills within 10 or 15 minutes. This particular jellyfish usually takes adults down within 10 or 15 minutes. What generally happens is that they fall into a coma, never come out of it. Here I am, finding myself very tired and very sleepy. I just lay down on the ground, thinking that I'm just holding it together. As I do, I feel my eyes beginning to shut, and as my eyes begin to close, I hear a voice speak to me. It says, son, if you close your eyes, you shall never awake again. I thought, what? Who said that? As I looked to my right, I expected to see a man standing next to me, but there was no one there. I thought, that's bizarre. I just heard a man speak to me. I looked around, there's no one there. And just to set your mind at rest, you know, we're not used to hearing voices. They're talking to you out of the middle of nowhere. They have your straitjacket in a padded cell, bounce around like a ping pong ball, you know what I mean? So I am lying there hearing a voice speak to me, but there's no one there. I thought, what did the voice say? Close your eyes, you'll never awake again? I thought, that means death. You idiot. That would have been a coma. That's not sleep. That's comatized certain death. I look at it now, in hindsight, had I not heard that voice, I know I'd have closed my eyes and that'll been it. I'd have died. I'd have been like most of the other people in Australia that have been killed by this thing, slip into a coma, never come out. Within 10 minutes, they're dead. And I was in peak condition. I hadn't eaten meat for years. I was a veggie. And I mean, I was in top condition, not an ounce of fat on me. But this poison was taking me down. And I thought, I've heard that voice, whatever it is, it says you're going to die. So I stood up, fought off the death that was coming on me as best I could, and found my left leg was still strong enough to support my weight. I used my right leg as a crutch and put my weight onto the left-hand side of my body and hobbled down the road looking for help. All the lights are out. There's a deserted part of the island anyhow. All these big homes, but the French don't come down except in the summer, you see. And this is May, there's no one there yet. As I moved down, I could see a small petrol station, Caltex station. I hobbled in there, and amazingly enough, the petrol station was closed, but there were 3 East Indian men in their taxis. I leaned up against one of their cabs, and they said, "Oh, you drunk?" I said, "I'm not drunk, I'm dying. I've been stung by poisonous jellyfish, sur la plage. Envie Saba, I need to get to Quatre-Mont Hospital." They said, "We have French client restaurant. We not need other passengers. Sorry, white man. Cannot help you." Walked away. I said, "I'm dying. Please help me." They kept walking. I said, "I'll give you money." They stopped. Yeah, in certain parts of the world money speaks, especially to taxi drivers. Yeah. They stopped. As they stopped, they turned, one put his hand out and he said, "How much money you give me, white man? I take you to hospital." He looked at his watch to see if he could pull another fare in. Well, I'm dying here in front of him, and he's arguing over the fare. I said, "Look, I don't care for the money. $50, $100, who cares? I'm dying." He put his hand out and said, "Let me see your money now, white man. I take you to hospital." Well, at that point, I'm thinking, I don't believe this guy. I said, "Look, I don't have it with me." The moment those words came out, that was a mistake, because all 3 of them walked away laughing. They said, "You no money, you stupid white man. What do you think we are? Walk away." I heard this voice speak to me and said, "Son, are you willing to beg for your life?" As I heard that, I thought, beg? I've seen men in Africa beg. Yes, boss. Yes, massa. Couldn't stand seeing it. Coming from New Zealand, I've never seen stuff like that. And so I couldn't stand seeing a man beg to another man. But I watched these men walk. I thought, beg? I wonder if I begged. I'll bet you that will work. These Indians have never seen a white man beg, not in this part of the world. I've got nothing to lose. I'm nearly dead. I slipped down onto my knees in front of them, fell onto my knees because my right leg was gone, my left leg was weak, lifted my right hand, which is paralyzed, and pleaded for my life. As I did that, 2 of them kept walking, lighting up a fag, thought it was a great joke. The 3rd one stopped and looked at me. I said, "Look, I'm dead serious. It's dead set, man. I'll die in front of you if you don't help me. I have the money. Please help me." He walked over towards me, helped me to my feet without a word, put me in his taxi. I thought, great. As he took off towards the hospital, he turned to me and he said, "What hotel room you stay? White man, I get my money from you." I thought, hotel room, money? This guy's still thinking of money. "Well, I don't stay in a hotel. I stay in the bungalow," I responded to him. "I stay on the beach with a fisherman." He said, "You lied to me. You tourist, you stay in a hotel." I said, "I'm not a tourist, I'm a traveller. I live not in a hotel, I live in Tamarin Bay with a fisherman in a bungalow." He said, you stay at Tamarin Bay Hotel?" Because there's a small hotel there near the village. I said, "No, man, I stay with a fisherman. Please, I have the money." He said, "You lied to me? I take you to a tourist hotel. They look after you. Why you lied to me? Why you do this to me?"
Didn't understand.
He didn't understand. No money, that's it, no hotel room, forget it. He thinks I've scammed him. He pulls off the main road down to the village where I live. As he stops, across from the village is a small Chinese hotel. He stops and said, "You get out now." I said, okay, getting out, man. Stop hassling me. I have the money, please, huh? And I try to get out. As I try to move, the left leg, I found to my horror, was now paralyzed also. The toxin had taken my entire lower trunk out. I turned and said, "My legs are gone, man. Please help me, huh? I have the money." He said, "You get out now." I said, "I can't, my legs are gone." He took my safety belt off, opened the passenger door, and just shoved me out, eh? As I flew out the door, I couldn't believe what was happening. But I looked up to see that when I hit the ground, my legs didn't make it. My feet were still caught in the door sill of the passenger side of his taxi. He couldn't close the door. I watched him lean over from the driver's seat, shove my feet out, and look at me in the face in disgust, close the door and drive off. I thought, I don't believe it. Why on earth would a man do that? For $50, man. All he has to do is another 5-10 minutes up the hill and I'm in the hospital. As he took off, I lay there and thought, I don't want to live on this miserable planet. If that's how fellow man treats fellow man for 50 miserable bucks, I'm not afraid to die. If it's my time to die now, if my number's up, do yourself a favour, son, and die here. I'm sick of this place. Now I lay there thinking that's it. But as I lay there, one of the security guards in the hotel must have seen the taxi. So he ran out, shone his torch around the car park to see if there's any tourists coming late from the airport. Here I was on the ground in a crumpled heap. As he ran over, I heard the voice of a fisherman, one of the fishermen. I thought, that's Danielle. He said, I heard his voice saying, Kisafarian, what happened to you, brother? Never see you like this. What you do on the ground, man? What you take tonight? He thought I was drunk or stoned or something. And so he ran over, and he's my drinking buddy from the village. I didn't realise he was a security guard, you see. Did a bit of extra money on the side, you know. And so I pulled my sweatshirt up, showed him a scarred forearm. The moment he saw it, he realised, because he's a diver, he said, "Oh, Sab." I went, oui, Daniel. He said, "Pardon, c'est fini for you. You died with Simon tonight." Lamont said, "Oui." He said, "Pardon," carrying me in his arms. He raced me to the hotel. Near the swimming pool, there was the bar, and the Chinese owners that ran the place had closed the bar, so all the tourists had gone to bed, but they were there gambling, playing mahjong amongst themselves, drinking whiskey. As these Chinese men looked at me, they said, "What's wrong with you? You drunk?" I said, "I'm not drunk. I'm dying. I need to go to Cuttermore Hospital. Please help me. I've been stung by a poisonous jellyfish." And as I'm speaking this, Danielle takes off into the night. As these men looked at me, I said, I'm trying to explain. I said, we don't understand you. What you say? We don't understand you. I said, my arm, I pulled my sleeve up. It had worked for my friend just a minute ago. Thought if they see my scars on my arm, they might realise I'm in serious trouble. So I pulled my sweatshirt up. They saw the scarred forearm. And the Chinese owner, he stood up, he said, "Wow, what you do, you stupid white man? You put the needle in the arm? Oh, the old man, he take the opium, huh? Well, why you put the needle in, you stupid white man?" I'm sitting there going, where's Danielle gone? These guys think I'm a drug addict, and I'm nearly dead. As I sit there, I see out of the corner of my right eye, my fingers start twitching. As I turn, I see muscle tissue between my knuckles going into spasms. Within a few seconds, my whole arm starts to tremble. It moves up into my face, and my teeth begin to literally be smashed into each other as my jaw goes out of control. Next minute, my entire face and body is in what I call the death rattles, muscular contortions, shaking to bits in front of them. As this deadly shaking's going on, I watch the Chinese men run towards me and try and hold me down. As they do, I'm throwing them off, like rag dolls. My body comes out of this deathly shakes, and I feel go through the core of my body an icy cold breeze, like very, very cold. So I'm freezing, man. They ran and got blankets. The old guy thought I must have taken a poison in my stomach. He tried to pour milk down my throat, at least he was thinking. As I'm sitting there, I feel the poison moving into my bone marrow, and not the poison, but death, like an icy cold death, necrosis, moving into my bone marrow and coming up towards to my upper body. As I'm sitting there, I know if this necrosis hits my upper body, I'm going to die in front of them. I'm gone. I'm dehydrated, paralysed, muscular contortions, now necrosis setting in. At university, I'd done veterinary science as one of my subjects, and when I did my degree in agriculture, so I knew from my own physiology I was in serious trouble. I had to get to the hospital. I turned, looked in the car park of the hotel, one vehicle. I recognised it instantly to belong to the Chinese owner who was now standing next to me. I said, "Sir, your car. Could you please take me to Cuttermore Hospital or I'll die in front of you? Please help me, sir. I'm nearly dead, eh? Can you take me in your car?" The Chinese man, he looked at his car. He put his hand on my shoulder. He said, "Oh, my car, huh? Cannot la. How come you so worried, white man, huh? We have ambulance for you. Don't worry, huh? Cannot take my car. We have ambulance for you. How come you so worried?" How come I so worried? I'm about to die, mate. You ever feel like hitting someone?
Yes.
I mean, I'm not an angry person or a vindictive kind of, you know what I mean? I'm not. I'm pretty mellow, but I tell you what, I felt like punching his lights out. I sat there and every part of me thought, how can I rearrange his face? You know, you hate it when someone touches you? You know what I mean? They're just in your space. Well, it's not only in my space, it's in my face. I thought I'll hit him. I was just about to plant him one, but my arm wouldn't respond. My mind was saying, smash him. My hand wouldn't move. I thought, great, it's paralysed. I tried my left hand, it moved. I thought, what on earth could I do with my left hand before I died? I thought, my forehead. I could give him a headbutt. So I only play a lot of rugby at home, you know what I mean? Every now and then you get in some pretty heavy stuff. So I'm about to rip him down into my forehead. As I'm about to do that, this voice comes again. It said, "Son, if you do that, the adrenaline rush will kill you. The toxin's too close to your heart." I thought, that's true. I looked away. I thought, if I survive this, I'll find you. I'm going to get you, Jack, your history. I'm staring out here, controlling my anger, again wondering what this voice was. But it had literally just stopped me from killing myself. As I looked away, trying to control it, my anger, I watched my friend Danielle come sprinting towards me. Next to him, another security guard. As they grab me in their arms, they carry me towards the entrance of the hotel, and I see, as they're carrying me, the headlights of a small vehicle comes flying into the car park. As I see it come around, it's an ambulance. Small Renault with an ambulance written on the side of it. The guy that's driving it doesn't see us because his headlights miss us, and it was a Creole that rang them, so they thought the boys must be stoned or drunk or off their face, false alarm. The Frenchman driving it changed gear and drove out without even stopping. He didn't even come in. As he took off around the corner, I'm slung between my two friends watching this happen. I think you're at a Grand Prix or something? And I can't whistle. I'm dehydrated. My friend lets me go, chases after the guy whistling, doing a huge wolf whistle, trying to get the guy's attention. Fortunately, he stops him in the road before he gets up onto the main road. The guy backs up. The other security guard throws me in, gets me into the ambulance. We take off. As we race towards the hospital, it's on a ridge, but they inadvertently put my feet in the front seat, my head's in the back seat. As I begin to climb the ridge to where the hospital is, the toxin that's now in my lower body starts to naturally drain down into my lungs, into my heart, and I feel it starting sweeping into my brain, and I feel compartments of my mind literally shutting down with the poison. It's a weird sensation, but I knew I was dying. As this continued to happen, I start to see on the inside of the ambulance what appears to be a small boy with white hair. I see sections of some kid's life with snow white hair. I then realize as I'm looking at it that this is me. This is sections of my own personal life. I thought, am I that close? With my mind, I did a mental check, you know what I mean, of my own vital signs. My mind told me I am very close to death. As I'm lying there, I think, well, I could be that close to death. I may not make it. I thought, if I don't make it and die before I get to the hospital, what would happen to me? Is there life after death, or when a man dies, is that it? Finished. Cessation life. Well, as a heathen, as an atheist, I reckon when you died, it was all over. The trouble was, I wasn't sure. How many know you can be wrong? You know what I mean? Ever been wrong in your life? Well, I was a gambler, and I'm gambling with my life here. I think, hey, if I'm wrong here, I'm gambling. It's like Russian roulette. I could be wrong here. I thought, I have no idea what will happen to me if I died. As I lay there, I began to see appear now before me my mother. As I saw her, I was amazed, because as I looked at her, I could see she was praying. I thought, what's my mum doing here? As I saw her praying, she looked straight up into my eyes. She said these words. She said, Ian, no matter what you've done in your life, son, no matter how far from God you may be, if you'll but call out to God from your heart, God will hear you and God will forgive you, son. I thought, forgive me? God? What's all this stuff about God? Is there a God? I had no idea until I returned back to New Zealand that at that precise moment on the other side of the world, my mother was on her knees praying for me. She's the only believer in our family. And she had prayed every day of our lives, all the kids, the whole family, every day, every one of them. And God had just spoken to her in prayer and said, your eldest son Ian is nearly dead. I thought, well, maybe there is a God. If there is, who is he? I've seen thousands of them. Everyone thinks their God's the right one. And when you're dying, you'd like to know who it is, you know. You don't want to back a loser. Not if you're a gambler. No. So I'm lying here thinking, I don't know. If there is a God, who could he possibly be? I lay there and said, God, I don't even know if you're real. I don't even know if you can hear me. But if you can, I'd have no idea what to pray. You know what I mean? Could you please help me to pray if you can hear me? As I lay there, words began to appear in front of my eyes. It said, forgive us our trespasses and sins. As I saw those words, I thought, how on earth could God forgive me? I mean, it's too late. You know what I mean? And I lay there and I thought, nah, God couldn't forgive me. I've done too many things wrong. I feel like a hypocrite even trying to ask that. My mother started saying in this vision, son, pray from your heart. I thought, from my heart is like stone. You could strike a match on it. I said, God, I don't know if you could forgive me. I don't even know if there's anything soft left in my heart. But if you can, I sincerely ask you to forgive me of all my sins. Please forgive me. As I said that, the words disappeared in front of me. More words appeared. Forgive those who have trespassed and sinned against you. I thought that means forgive other people. I could do that. I'm not a vindictive person by nature. God, I can forgive anyone, no worries. No matter what people have done to me, I forgive those that have sinned against me. As I said that, the face of the Indian taxi driver appeared in front of me. I thought, what on earth is this man doing here? The voice said, will you forgive this man for pushing you out of his taxi tonight and leaving you for dead on the side of the road? I thought, no, you must be joking. Not forgiving him. I mean, I was furious with that guy. And the next minute, the Chinese guy's face appeared in front of me. I thought, what on earth is he doing here? And the voice said, will you forgive this man for not taking you in his car tonight and leaving you to die in the hotel? I thought, no. As I saw both of these men's faces, I thought, who on earth is this voice? Who am I speaking to? Who's talking to me? These words, my mother called them the Lord's Prayer. Am I speaking to God or something? Is he actually talking to me? I lay there, I don't want to forgive these men. I thought, man, this stuff could be real. I lay there almost like in a catch-22 situation. Part of me just wanted to deal out to them. I mean, I wanted to lay hands on those guys.
Not in a theocratic way.
Yeah, not like the priest would do, you know, God bless you, my son. My hands are going up around his throat, man. Like, you have a problem breathing.
Yes.
Don't worry, Mum, be happy. You know what I mean? I strangled them. I mean, I'm lying here dying, and I've got two men's faces before me. So this is where the rubber meets the road. This couldn't be just some mumbo-jumbo Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy stuff. This could be real. I lay there and thought, God, I don't want to forgive them. But God, if you can forgive me of all the stuff I've done wrong in my life, and I don't know how you could do it, but if you can somehow forgive me for the people I've hurt, I'll forgive these men. I'll never touch them. I'll never lay my hands upon them. I let them go. Their faces instantly disappeared. Fresh words. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. I thought, that's God's will. I've done my own will for 24 years. You know, I'm independent, self-sufficient. I said, God, I don't know your will, but it appears as only a miracle will spare my life at this point. God, if you are real and you can hear me, I give my will to you. I surrender my life to you. I will try and follow you all the days of my life. As if I come through this, as I prayed that, the entire Lord's Prayer appeared. You know, Our Father which art in heaven. As I prayed it, I understood each letter. It's like I understood for the first time in my life that I was talking to God in this prayer. An amazing peace settled upon me, and I knew as best I knew how, should there be a God, you know what I mean, and he was real, I'd try to make peace with him. You know what I mean? And as I prayed that prayer, the ambulance seemed to stop. You ever been in a car accident where everything goes into like slow motion?
Yeah.
I felt like in that ambulance, time seemed to have stopped as my heart was dealt with before God. And I had no idea how pivotal that prayer was, how powerful that prayer prayed from my heart would mean in the things that were going to take place next. No understanding, really, of how important that prayer was. As the ambulance stopped, they lifted me into a wheelchair, raced me through the accident emergency. First person saw me was a nurse. She pulled my sweatshirt up, tried to take my blood pressure. She pumped a machine up. I watched her look at a machine and shake it. I thought, what's wrong with it? She hit the top of it, turned to me, it's like, there's something either wrong with you or the machine. Thought the machine must be broken, pulled it off my arm, pulled another blood pressure machine out, stuck it on my arm with the hoses, pumped it up, and then again hit the top of this one. Crouched down and started tapping the side glass where the mercury is supposed to move for the pressure with a fingernail. At this point, I can feel myself like in a third party, almost like I'm watching this going on. You know, I mean, I knew this wasn't astral projection. I knew this wasn't some drug. This was death. I knew if I left my body, it was a one-way ticket. And I knew that I was so close to death that I couldn't even hear my heart beating. So I watched this nurse playing with the machines. I thought, I'm in serious trouble. My veins might have collapsed. The nurse just stared there blankly like I shouldn't be alive. The ambulance driver ripped it off my arm, pushed it to one side and raced me towards the doctors. He knew I was in trouble. As the ambulance driver raced me towards the doctors, the first doctor didn't even look at me. He's got his head down and went, Quel âge est-il? Où est la habite? In French, he's asking me how old I am and where I live. And I'm thinking, well, hurry up and look at me, son. Otherwise, I'm not going to be here. Who cares about my address? I'm gone. As he looked up, I thought he speaks French, perhaps he's not good in his English. I looked at the older doctor to his left. He wasn't looking at me either. He stared up because there was such a silence in the room. As he looked into me, I locked onto his eyes and said, "Sir, I am nearly dead. I've been stung by Sark 5, Ombizarb jellyfish. I need antitoxins now. I'm nearly dead." The nurse came sprinting in past me with her blood pressure results, passed them to the old doctor. He saw them, and whatever he saw caused the entire accident emergency to come to life. You ever been in an accident emergency? I mean, you have to be serious before someone moves in there. As I watched these men run, I watched people appear from nowhere with drip feeds and syringes. Suddenly they started shoving needles into me. The doctor saying, "Come on, son, keep your eyes open. We're going to try and save your life. Antitoxins for the poison. Drip feed, dextrose for the dehydration, sugar solution. Come on, son." Started smashing my hand, lifting my skin up, and stuck a syringe between my second and third finger. I had no idea what they were doing to begin with. Then I saw my veins start to balloon out, bubble out, and I realized they were looking for a vein, which had collapsed. As they hit the vein, the nurse was so nervous, her needle was bouncing from side to side. My vein came up to about here, full of fluid, didn't seem to be moving. I watched this nurse manually try and massage it up my forearm. To no avail. It seemed to be rolling off a thumb and forefinger. I thought, man, my veins have collapsed. I'm in trouble here. But I'm lying there thinking, this is not going to take me out. I've been in enough sessions over the years. I'm going to stay here and snap the back of this. It's not going to take me down. And I used every ounce of strength I could to keep my eyes open. But with this perspiration coming in, couldn't see properly. My lips wouldn't respond. So I tried to lift my arms up to clear my eyes, you know, and so I could see properly. Both arms are now totally paralyzed. They wouldn't move. I thought, no. I tried to tilt my head to the right or the left, thinking if I can move it enough, it'll get my eye clear so I can continue to see. My neck wouldn't respond. The paralysis set into my neck. Now I'm in serious trouble. I can now try and squeeze my eyelids, which is helping clear some of the fluid, but as I do it stronger, I can feel the poison going back through the capillaries, back into the back of the eye sockets. I can feel poison being pumped back there, and my eyes getting heavier and heavier, to the point where I realise if I don't close my eyes for a few moments and have a bit of a break here, I mean, I'm going to be no good for anything. So I thought, well, I'll close my eyes, have a sleep for a few moments, and then try again. As I did that, breathed out, a bizarre sensation happened. The impression of it was like there was a release, or like the battle to stay alive had finished. I had no idea until talking to the doctors later. At that point, they came back to find my eyes closed, took my pulse. I was gone. They had lost me. I had literally gone. For a period of 15 minutes, I was just a dead corpse, a piece of meat. And they actually moved me out of the accident emergency down what it looks like to be a part of the hospital or morgue or something. Moved me actually bodily down the tropics. They don't leave your body lying around too long. So they moved me out of the accident emergency down into another part of the hospital. And so, as for me, I had no idea I'd been pronounced clinically dead. To me, I was asleep. The trouble was, as I closed my eyes, which, you know, things go dark, I suddenly found myself in a standing upright position, wide awake. I knew I was awake. The trouble was, it was pitch black. And my first thought was, why on earth did those doctors go and turn the lights out in here? I mean, that's enough to spin anyone out, you know what I mean? Why on earth would they do that? What kind of hospital is this? As I stood there, wondering how long I'd been asleep for and why the lights are out, you know what I mean? 1 minute it's a hospital room, next minute it's pitch black. I thought, well, don't freak out. Let your eyes accustom to the dark. Maybe you've woken up too quick. So I kept looking, thinking my pupils are dilated. No light. Couldn't see a thing. It was pitch black, like a dark room. So, well, okay. There must be some light in here somewhere. So I turned around 360 degrees, checking out to see if there's some light. Couldn't see a thing. I thought, well, I'll go and just find a wall, you know, find a wall here, get the light switch, turn it on, see where we are. As I went out to my right, I couldn't find the wall. I thought, that's weird. Have they moved me? Maybe that's why the lights are out. They've moved me down to the general ward while I'm in asleep. I've woken up, the lights are out, they don't want to wake the other patients. So I thought, well, I'll go back to my bed, find my hospital bed, should be a lamp near there, and that shouldn't wake too many people up. So I started moving back to the left, groping around looking for my bed. Couldn't find it. I thought, great, you idiot, now you've lost your beard. How on earth did you do that? You know what I mean? You would talk to yourself, so I'm groping around trying to find my hospital bed, can't find it, and another thought comes into my mind. It's so dark in here, you can't even see your hand in front of your face. I thought, well, is it that dark? I brought my hand up. As it did towards my face, my hand seemed to pass straight through my face, like there was nothing physically there. I thought, that's impossible. You can't miss your head, it's not that dark. 2 hands. Brought both hands up to where my face should be, both hands seemed to pass straight through. So where's my arm, my body, my hands? As I went for different parts of where my human form should be, there was nothing physically there. It was like you're outside of your body. But before I could think too much about that, I'm thinking, well, what is this place? What's this darkness? As I stood there, I began to tune myself to it. I could sense the darkness had an evil presence, a cold, encroaching evil pervading the atmosphere. Like, it wasn't just physical, but there was a spiritual darkness, you know what I mean? Like, it was evil in there. And as I stood there, I began to sense something out to my right, looking at me. In front of me, I felt like invisible eyes of something or someone checking me out. You ever felt that? Ever kind of felt like when you're walking home at night, sometimes someone's checking you out and you get a bit of a chill through your spine? Well, you intensify that about 100 times over. I'm standing there sensing not only something, but there's something moving towards me. As I feel the movement in this darkness towards me, I move back. As I do, a man screams at me to the right, out of the midst of the darkness, and says this, "Shut up!" I went, "Shut up?" I said, "Nothing. What are you talking about?" You know, responding to him, I braced myself for a hit. As I did that, another voice of a man screamed at me to the left. He said, "You deserve to be here." "Deserve to be where? Where am I?" Another man in front of me. "You're in hell. Now shut up." Well, I didn't believe in hell. I was an atheist. I believed hell was a religious trip put on people to scare them into their religion. I thought all religions are based in fear. If there was a hell, it'd be a party time. You know what I mean? The jury headbanging stuff. You know what I mean? Sex and drugs and rock and roll. You know what I mean? I'm thinking that's what it'll be. Party time. Everything you can't do up here, you can get away with down there. I thought I'd rather be down there than up there in the clouds with a white sheet on, having some little... given a harp to play, you know what I mean, and some little fat baby with wings on firing arrows at me. I thought I'd rather be, you know, down here partying than up there in the clouds playing the harp or something. I mean, really. But see, both of those concepts just went out the window. I'm standing not down in the party time with the lads. I'm standing here outside of my physical body. Pretty hard to grab your bear down there, isn't it?
Right.
Can't find your face. I mean, and jokes aside, you wouldn't want your worst enemy to go there. It was like I was standing there. I thought, man, this is like a holding tank. This is like, I mean, this could be real. It's not the place where your physical body goes, because I realise my physical body must be up in the hospital, you know what I mean? That's where, for guy, it's like you're suddenly getting a download of reality. This could be the pit. Yeah. And these men are in the same place. And your thought is like speech to them. You could be there 5 minutes to 5,000 years. You can't get tired. You can't tell time. You could actually be here. This could be it. As I stood there, realizing I could actually be in hell, in total darkness, a radiant beam of light pierced through the darkness above me. As this light touched my face, I felt an awesome presence go through me, and my entire body seemed to lift off the ground and be translated up into this light and radiance. As I'm being drawn up into it, I can see that it's coming from a circular-shaped opening far above me, that this light is emanating out of a circular opening. I feel like a speck of dust being drawn towards this light. As I'm being drawn up towards it, I thought, is this real? I looked back over my shoulder, and far beneath me, I could see the darkness. Somehow this light had pinpointed me and plucked me out of it. Still not understanding what this light was, I began to move up to the opening, enter it. As I was drawn into the opening, I could now see that it was a tunnel, circular in shape. As I looked along the length of it, I could see the source of the radiance. My first thought is the center of the universe. Look at the light. Look at the power coming from there. And moving into the tunnel, I knew I wasn't walking. I was being translated through the air and at a supernatural speed, drawn towards the light. As I'm being moved towards it, I watch as a wave of radiance comes up. As this wave of light comes off the source, it touches me, and I feel warmth, comfort. All that kind of fear and darkness just seems to go out of me. and I feel a living light flow through me. As I moved through it, I thought in the darkness, I couldn't see my hand in front of my face. Maybe in this radiant light, I can see something. So I turned my head, you know what I mean, to look. As I looked to my right, I saw my arm, my hand outstretched, because I mean, I've been drawn towards it. As I looked, my arm was transparent, full of light, totally full of radiance. I thought, that's bizarre. I'd stopped in the tunnel. I thought, I don't want to stop here. I want to see more. I don't know what's happening to me, but I want to see what's down there. As I continued to look back to the source of the radiance, I felt myself again move along the tunnel towards it. As I did, another wave of light came up. As this wave of radiance passed into me, joy, total joy, filled me. I thought, that's awesome. What am I going to see next is going to be the most incredible thing a man could possibly see. As I popped out of the tunnel, I watched now where the tunnel had constricted the size and diameter of the light I could see. I now had unrestricted access to the radiance. As I looked out, I could see I was standing in what appeared to be the center of the universe. All light and power seemed to be directly in front of me. Shafts of radiance came out from the central core. It was like a white fire. Phenomenal radiance in the central core. From that, I watched this brilliant light piercing out. And I thought, even the stars in the universe, even the constellations must find their energy source from this focal point. What is that light? Is there someone in there surrounded by this radiance? Or is that just an energy source in the cosmos? Is that just some power source of good in the universe? Or is there a person or a being in that radiance? As I questioned that in my own mind, a voice spoke to me from the center of the light. The voice said, Ian, do you wish to return? As I heard this man's voice, I instantly recognized it be the same one that spoke to me on the side of the road where I nearly closed my eyes and died. The same voice that asked me to beg for my life, the same voice that spoke to me in the ambulance, asked me if I'd forgive these men. As I heard his voice, I thought, he knows my name, there is someone, but return where? Where am I? As I looked behind, I could see the same circular-shaped opening, like the tunnel that I'd apparently just travelled down, dissipating back into darkness. I thought, darkness, hospital bed, my physical body. Have I left my physical form? Have I actually come up this tunnel of light? Is this real? Am I standing here out of my physical form? Or am I comatized in the hospital, having some bizarre dream or hallucination? Am I alive or am I dead?
Quite a quandary there.
Well, my mind, I could cognitively think of the two alternatives. You don't leave your mind behind. As I stood there grappling with what was reality, I thought, this could be real. I could actually be dead. Maybe I did die. Perhaps I'm standing here. I thought, but return where? I responded to the question. I said, I don't even know where I am. If I'm out of my physical body, I wish to return. I have no idea where I am. As I spoke that to him, he spoke to me again and said, Ian, if you wish to return, you must see in a new light. I thought, if I want to go back, I must see in a new light. What does that mean? Light. See the light. Look at this light. Am I seeing the light? It must be. Look at this. It's a phenomenal radiance. Are you the true light? As I asked the question to the person who was speaking to me, words appeared in front of my eyes. God is light. And in him there is no darkness at all. 1 John 1:5. I thought I've read this somewhere, a Christmas card in South Africa, in Cape Town, in Bantry Bay. I remember reading this, but I didn't know what the 1 John 1:5 was. I thought there were hieroglyphics, Roman or, you know what I mean, Egyptian, something. I had no idea what that numerology was. But these words had fascinated me because it said God is light. Every other philosophy or religion I'd ever heard anyone expound on said that God is yin and yang, light and dark, good and evil, in the circle of life, as they used to tell me in their philosophy and their religion. God had both light and darkness in him. They said, well, you've got good and evil in you, Ian, so therefore if you're created in the image of God, God must. But this teaching said, no, God is pure light. Man might have good and evil in him, but God has none. He is pure light. As I stood there, I thought, could that be God? And in him there's no darkness at all. I've just come from darkness. Whoever this person is, whoever this being is, there is no darkness, no shadow, nothing but light. Could that be God? As I'm standing there, I'm thinking, well, it could be. Look at the intensity and power that's surrounding him. Look at the phenomenal light. And whoever he is, he knows my name. And he knows what I'm thinking. Before I even speak, he knows my inner thought. I thought only God could do that. I thought if that is God and God is light, then his light and presence must be able to search my inner man. His spirit must be able to see everything that I've done wrong in my life. You know, you can put a masquerade or a mask up before people, you know what I mean? You can fool people. But here, I knew that all the masquerades and masks in my life were gone. I was undone. That light was penetrating and searching the depth of me. I thought, they've made a mistake here. I shouldn't be here. I'm not a good man. I should crawl back under some rock or go back into the darkness where I belong. I don't want God to see my life transparent before him. Have you ever been ashamed of stuff? I mean, I've done some stuff. I thought, no. I've done that stuff, man. I knew myself. I began to pull back. As I began to pull back towards the darkness of the tunnel, I watched a wave of radiance come off him and move towards me. I expected it to touch me and literally catapult me back into the pit. But as this wave of light emanated forth off him, it moved through me. And all I got was love. I thought, you can't love me, I've cursed you. More love came. This time it got stronger. I said, why are you loving me, God? Don't you know what I've done? More love. I said, I've slept around, taken heaps of drugs. More of his love. I couldn't believe. My whole body tingled with a supernatural presence as love and forgiveness and acceptance just came to issue forth from him. It's like he was completely embracing me with his presence no matter what I'd done wrong. I couldn't understand it, eh? I felt myself beginning to weep. As I began to weep, the love got stronger. I could feel this liquid love moving through me and filling me up on the inside. I felt the entire part of my being being filled with light, but more tears kept coming. I just couldn't understand that God could accept me as I was. As it continued to come, I looked out to see I was now surrounded, encased in radiance. My entire person was full of light, and I was totally at peace. As I stood there, I watched the waves of light ebb and then cease. And I thought, I wonder if I could possibly step through the light that surrounds God. I thought, I'm so close. I wonder if he'd let me in. I stood there and said, God, could I come in? I want to ask you the meaning and truth to life. He said nothing. So I thought, if he can love and accept me as I am, surely he won't mind. So I stepped towards the radiance. As I did, I found myself disappear into this light. It was so dense. It was like a cloud. As I moved into it, I was now where inside the light were like shimmering veils of fluorescence. It was almost like small stars caught inside this cloud, giving off facets of radiance, sparkling, shimmering, like the facets of almost a cut diamond, how it gives off light. But it wasn't physical in the sense that it wasn't stones or diamonds. It was actually light breaking forth in this cloud. As I moved through veils of this light, an amazing healing presence was coming forth off the light. It was like a healing property was touching my broken heart. You know what I mean? I could feel my heart of hearts being healed. I mean, I'd look for love and sex and stuff, but this was pure. You know what I mean? This wasn't some degenerate, sicko stuff. This was pure. And it was just touching. There's the depths of me, man. I knew what sex and that stuff was, but this was pure love, no strings attached. As I continued to move through, I thought, is there any way that God would let me see him? Because all I'm seeing is this light. Could I see God? Will I just see this radiance? As I moved in, it suddenly began to part. As the light began to open up, I became aware that standing in the center, I began to make out a man's bare feet. Around his ankles were dazzling white robes, garments. not garments of cloth, but garments of light. As I looked out and saw that, I began to lift my face up to see the chest of a man, and his arms were outstretched with dazzling white robes, as if to welcome me. But as I looked towards his face, I almost had to turn away. Because as I saw the light and radiance coming off his face, I turned, because it was so pure. And it was 7 times brighter than all the light that I'd just seen. This light seemed to eclipse everything I'd walked in through. His face shone like the light was coming out of the pores of his skin. I could make out the form of the features of the outs, you know what I mean, like the hair, but I couldn't see the actual facial features because the light was so brilliant. I began walking closer towards him, thinking, that must be God. I wondered if I could just see his face. I'll know who God is. As I got within a few feet of his presence, I began to place my face into the light. And it didn't hurt your eyes. It was like you could look into it. As I placed my face closer in towards his face, hoping I'd break through that veil, as my face did, he suddenly moved. I thought, why has he done that? I've got so close I couldn't see his face. As he moved, all the radiance moved with him, and directly behind him, the same circular shaped diameter as a tunnel, I could see it opening out, and in front of me, like standing in almost like in a cave entrance, I could see, looking out from this entrance, green fields, meadows, fields opening up before my very eyes. As I looked at it, like a new planet. I could see a crystal clear stream working its way through. It was like Earth, but untouched, you know what I mean? A totally new Earth. Every single part of me's gone, I've made it. Somehow, on the skin of my teeth, I have made it. I mean, I knew that somehow I belonged here. It was like I knew I was home. I was wondering, why on earth wasn't I born here in the first place? Why was I born on this miserable planet? Why? Because you must be born again of the Spirit of God. You must have a rebirth and you're in a man to enter into here. But I'm standing here not realizing that's what had happened in the ambulance, that prayer, I'd actually had a rebirth in that prayer, that deathbed prayer. I had no idea that God had heard that and actually moved upon my spirit and washed my inner man as white as snow, crystal clear. As I'm standing there looking in, all I want to do is explore. I mean, I thought my feet won't touch the ground. I could see the pasture had the same life force that was upon the presence of God emanating right through it. I knew if I stepped on it, it would spring back. The light is like everything was giving off life. As I started to move in, his presence came right back in front of me and blocked the way. He asked me this question. He said, Ian, now that you've seen, do you wish to go in or do you wish to return? I thought, return? What for? I wish to go in. He didn't move. I said, I have no one to return for. I'm a single man. I am not married. I have no children, well, none that I know of. Please allow me in. He didn't move. Because I thought if God, you know what I mean, knew my life, he'd know that maybe I've fathered some child illegitimately. I thought maybe I've wrecked some young girl's life. You know what I mean? And God knows that. He wants me to go back and father that child. And when you're standing before God, you're not some big smart aleck or mouthing off. You just know he can see you, and you just want to be right. I mean, I thought maybe I've done something wrong. I've got to go back. As I stood there, he didn't move. I said, God, I don't own any money. Please allow me in. No mortgage, no debt. Still nothing. I said, in my life, no one's ever loved me. No one in my life has ever truly loved me. Your love has touched my heart. I've never felt such pure love. Can I stay here? I have no desire to go back. Everyone wants to manipulate you, control you, hidden agendas, strings attached. But your love and acceptance is the most pure thing I've ever found in my life. No one's ever cared for me like that. No one's ever loved me like that. I have no one to return for. He didn't move. So I thought, then permit me to say one last thing, goodbye cruel world, and I was going to take my chances and try and step through the light and hope that God wouldn't stop me. As I looked back to do that, directly behind me, God showed me a vision of one person who loved me, one person who not only cared for me and accepted me, but had prayed for me all the days of my life. As I looked at her, I saw my mother in a clear vision right behind me. The moment I saw her, I thought, man, if I am dead, well, what's going to happen if I do step through? If I do step through, could I tell my mum that I made it? Could I communicate with her from this place? I thought, I don't know. I don't want to risk it. I thought, if I am dead and I step through, will my mother have any idea that in that ambulance I prayed? Will she have any idea that I gave my life to God and that God could forgive me? And I thought, no, she'll think a heathenistic son went straight to hell. She'd have no reason to believe I'd pray. Why? My lifestyle is completely antichrist stuff. As I stood there, I thought, God, I wish to return for my mum. I've led such a selfish life. I want to return and tell her what she believes in is real. If I come back, I'll find, you know what I mean? If I go back, I'll find out where this place is, and I'm coming back whether anyone believes me or not. I mean, whether anyone believes me, I don't really care. I know if I died right now, I'm out of here. I'm going to go straight up into his presence, because I know that I've made peace with my Maker. I know that he has forgiven me, accepted me, and I know that he'll take me back into his presence. Total assurance in my heart, not an ounce of fear of death in me. And as I stood there, I said, God, you know what I mean, how do I return? You know what I mean, tell my mum. He said, son, if you wish to return, you must see things in a new light, from his eternal perspective, not my own. And see, when the love of God comes into you, you start to see and love people from a totally different place. And I said, well, then how do I go back down that tunnel? As I looked back towards it, directly behind me now was not only my mum, and I see now my dad, my brother and my sister, like a clear vision, with thousands and thousands of other people, never seen before in my life. I said, God, what are all these people? He said, Ian, if you don't return, many of these people will most likely not step foot inside a church any longer to hear my name. I said, church? Well, neither would I. I don't even know these people. I know my mum. I wish to return for her. I love her. He said, Ian, I love these people. I desire all of them to come to know me. And I thought, what? See, my heart was like, you know, look after your own. Here, God's telling me his heart is for everyone. And I just see hundreds of thousands of people. I had no idea what I'm fully seeing, but I just know the heart of God reaching out towards all these other people. I said, well, God, I don't know about them, but how do I go back down that tunnel, back into darkness and back into my physical body? I don't even know how I came here. He said, son, tilt your head. Now feel the liquid drain from your eye. Now open your eye and see. I'm instantly back with my head tilted, which I hadn't been able to do, with my right eye open, looking down the length of my body to see my right leg elevated, cupped in the hands of the young doctor who'd been working on me before with the needles, and with a knife in his hand, scalpel or something, prodding the base of my foot like a dead piece of meat. As I open my eye and see this happening, I thought, what's happened? God, I think I'm dead or something? What on earth's he doing with my foot? I'm thinking, did I just see God? See, it was so sudden. It would have been a lot easier, I think, if God let me float down out of the heavens, you know what I mean, down through the clouds, down through the hospital centers, back into my body. But I am instantly, as he spoke, I found out later that God has power, that when he spoke, things come to life. I mean, even things that are dead can come back to life when God speaks, because there's creative power in the spoken voice of God. I found myself lying there looking at this doctor who suddenly gets spooked, you know what I mean? Like, something happens, and he turns and sees my one eye looking at him. The moment he sees my one eye staring into his two eyes, he goes as white as a sheet and nearly goes through the ceiling. Ah, you know, I thought, what on earth's going on? I watch him look again. This time he could see him thinking maybe he's hit a nerve, because the nerve endings to your spine at the base of the feet. Maybe he's hit a nerve with a knife, you know what I mean, hit a nerve ending, caused the corpse to have an involuntary twitch or something. He's got an evil eye, or a dead man's eye looking at him. Yeah. As he's staring with his two eyes frantically into mine, like maybe the corpse has moved, I'm thinking, what on earth's going on here? I hear the voice of God break through my thoughts. He said, Ian, I have just given your life back. I went, what? God, if that's true, no wonder this man has no idea what's going on. Could you please help me tilt my head to the left and look out the other eye? I'm getting sick of looking at him. As I felt strength come back to my neck, it rolled, my left eye drained, and 10 feet away on the doorway were nurses and orderlies staring in at my left eye opening. They freaked. One nurse was crouched down. She jumped back and knocked the girl who was over her shoulder, nearly knocked the jaw off. Oh, I thought, what on earth is this? I looked back at the doctor, who was still holding my foot, trembling, shaking like a leaf. I thought, there must be a logical reason. Maybe there's a doctor to my right, you know, with a kickstart on the heart. Yeah. I turned, no one there. I thought, that's impossible. I looked to my left, no one. Still the doctor's holding my foot. The nurses and orderlies are panicking. I'm going, you can't bring a man back to life by holding onto his right foot or gaping through a doorway. You need mouth-to-mouth, CPR, or, you know, the kickstart on the heart. As I'm looking at this, I'm figuring out, say, maybe I have seen God. When the doctors come and tell me 15 minutes and start reattaching the drip feed, I realize this is freaky. I'm thinking, if I've just seen God, that means my life has got to change. I thought, wow, where do you start? I mean, where do you start, eh? No, I'm a write-off. Where do I start to follow God? I lay there realizing that if I've been dead that long, I could be on a machine. I thought, well, I may never even get out of the hospital if I've been dead that long. I thought, God, if you've just given my life back, could you please do another miracle? Could you please heal me and enable me to walk out of this hospital and live a normal life? If not, I'd rather be dead. Please take me back into your presence. I'd rather be dead than on a machine. As I lay there, I felt this warmth and power, almost in the natural like electricity, but I now know it to be the supernatural presence of God. As this power like electricity began to move through me in successive waves, I felt healing move into me, and within 3 or 4 hours, I got total movement and feeling back. They moved me to the general ward, and the next day I discharged myself from the hospital, walked out under my own steam, completely healed. I believe in the supernatural healing power of God. As I walked out, the fishermen in the village saw me come back into the village and thought I was a ghost come back from the dead to haunt them. They ran. Some picked up stones and called me a spirit. They thought I was a spirit coming back to torment.
The Lord Jesus Christ is God Almighty, who came to earth as a man. Mankind is in a fallen state because of Adam and Eve, the parents of the human race. Fallen state means men are naturally inclined to evil, rebellion, selfishness, committing sin, even excusing it, becoming impure, unholy. God does not permit sin, nor will he allow it to flourish in his creation forever. Mankind is currently living in a time of God's mercy. The Lord offered his life to pay the penalty of sin, because God applies justice. Only God himself could satisfy the magnitude of the penalty of sin. To balance the scales of justice, for the evil act of Adam and Eve, deceived by Satan to believe they can displace God by becoming gods themselves, and all the subsequent evil acts committed by men and women. Adam and Eve failed to demonstrate they loved God, since they followed directions given by Satan. The one you follow becomes your God. God gives men free will, to choose to live with him, or not. Those who don't wish to live with God, and reject him, go to the place where God's presence is absent. Hell. God placed in every man, woman, conscience and reason, through which every person is able to look at creation all around, and see the evidence of a magnificent Creator. Those who are grateful, seek to know the one true Creator, and honor him. To follow God involves fending off lies from God's enemy, Satan, who works arduously, to turn heart and mind away from the one true living God. The first coming of the Son of God, the Lord Jesus Christ, changed the entire earth. Pagan practices of human sacrifice, slavery, cruelty, poverty began diminishing wherever the Lord's church was established. The Lord not only performed untold numbers of miracles, and taught during his life on earth. He established a physical church, and appointed priests to guide it as he presides over it in heaven, until he returns to end this world. The Lord's church which he established is the Roman Catholic Church of pre-Vatican II. It is the only church with the historical evidence of its founding by the Lord Jesus Christ. The Lord's church has suffered and been assaulted since its inception. But as the Lord promised, evil will not overcome it. The Roman Catholic Church is the oldest monarchy ever to exist on earth. 2,000 years. To follow God, is to enter his church and follow its teachings which are ordained by him. By doing so, you avail yourself to the gift God gave of dying on the cross to pay the penalty for your sins. So you don't go to hell, and receive his grace, in sacraments, to resist sin and become holy. God has said, all the gods of the pagans are devils. Pagans are all religions and beliefs, outside the Roman Catholic Church of pre-Vatican II.